All right, welcome back to My Life, Sam Radford. Oh boy, on this episode we have Alex Larsen, aka Kid Twist, former battle rap champion, one of the best battle rappers in the world out of Canada. Uh, he went on to writing a feature-length film about battle rap, which is very amazing and a very cool perspective coming from somebody in that world. It was executive produced by Eminem. It was directed by Joseph Kahn, a great director, also one of the best music video directors of all time. And Alex has recently had a new project that is an anime show on Netflix that is doing very well in numbers and trending. And I might butcher it, but it's Yasuke, I think.
Yeah, it's Yasuke. You kind of,
Yasuke. I
I'm
messed it
honestly, I'm,
already.
I'm, I'm butchering it a little bit myself there, even, but I think that's the closest. If you just pretend like the U doesn't exist, I think that gets you
Yeah.
closest to the Japanese from an Anglo perspective.
Yeah. So we'll delve into that. But man, Alex is such a interesting, amazing person. And like I want to thank him for coming on. And Alex, my first question usually right now, like I want to speak about the writing a lot and the movies a lot. But first, where was your introduction to hip hop? What first got you into rap?
Oh man. Well, thank you for having me on. First of all, it's great to be here. Um, Man, I have to be. This is a situation where just have to be totally honest, even though a lie might be a better story. But I'm like that perfect age where I'm a white guy, didn't have a ton of exposure to hip hop growing up, but I was at that exact right age where Eminem's "My Name Is" came out when I was 12 years old and blew my mind. I think there's a certain indescribable feeling of being 12 or 13 years old and hearing Eminem's "My Name Is." It's just, it was sort of perfectly tailored for like that moment in time and that kind of like middle school age range where it literally changed my entire life. And jumping way ahead, it is kind of like a crazy full circle moment that exact song is what closes out the credits to Bodied. So it was truly a full circle moment of my journey there. But yeah, man, I mean, I obviously I'd heard some rap before then, of course, but never really got it, so to speak. And that was what kind of brought me into the fold. And from there, I just spent pretty much all of my high school years kind of researching the genre because I felt like I was missing out on all the real background of it. So I was just going back and listening to all the dudes from the 80s like Rakim and Cool G Rap and actually buying CDs off of Amazon and what was the site at that time? Hiphopsite.com was a big one for buying CDs back in the day. And yeah, and then just all the stuff through the 90s that I had missed as well. And kind of getting into like the 2000s underground rap scene too, which is like the indie rap scene, which was crazy at that time with, Atmosphere and Merce and guys like that. And yeah, so but it all came from that Eminem spark. I was part of the Eminem class of white boys in hip hop for sure.
Oh man, it's so funny too. Me being a former like low tier battle rap fan and battle rapper. Whenever you meet anybody and you say, "Oh, I do battle raps," and oh, so you must love Eminem, right? Every single
Uh-huh.
time. But that's so crazy to you how full circle that must have been with that getting you into it and that being the end of maybe like a chapter in your life. You know what I mean? Because of writing the
Yep.
movie, I feel like so in this movie we'll speak on it later, but it's kind of like a full circle on you can tell Alex's story is being said, and it's kind of like his homage and his ode to battle rap. It's kind of like, I did it. I appreciate it. I love you guys. This is everything that I've put into, and thank you. Like that's kind of
It
what I
really,
get
it
from the
really
movie.
was that, man. I actually, it's really cool that you say that because that really is how I felt about it, and maybe not even consciously at the time, but it's certainly how I look at it now. Because I love battle rap. I'm still a fan. I still watch it, but in terms of having the bug to do it again myself, I just really don't feel that anymore the way that I used to. And part of that is I've just transitioned into screenwriting now, and that's fulfilling my creative mission. But I think it's also that I just said everything I had left to say with that movie.
Oh, the movie touches on so many things. But before we speak about the movie, I want people to understand why we're bringing it up. So, Alex said he started getting into rap. I don't know exactly the age he started rapping at, but I do know that at 17, he had a competition at a school or something where he had performed freestyles, and then he linked up with a producer and released his first LP at age 17. And then the next year he had gone to win the competition with said producer. And so,
damn, that's some deep history. This is where the Canadian thing comes into play, because you're talking to somebody who was like there at that talent show or something.
Hey man, I've been a fan of it for so long. I delve into it, when it comes to basketball, I'm a stats guy. So
right. No, I appreciate that. That's awesome. But no, that's the only inaccuracy is that it was an EP, not an LP. So
oh my God, I messed up a letter. But so what I want to ask from that is, so it seems that you started with the music mindset, with the song mindset. So when I rapped as a kid, I listened to a lot of Jedi Mind Tricks and Immortal Technique, and I was never really writing songs with two verses and a hook. And I was only kind of writing, in a sense, what is a battle verse. And so, like, what was your transition from writing songs to getting into the battle rap world?
I mean, a lot of it was just realizing how bad I was at writing songs. Because there's a certain there's a certain element, and I think all people who are big fans of hip hop can relate to this, but there's a certain element where, authenticity is such a hard thing to quantify, but it's such an integral element of the genre. And there's a certain perspective and certain topics that hip hop, for whatever reason, is just best suited for. And I mean, not to dance around the subject, a lot of it is it's a Black art form, right? It's a Black American art form. And so that, of course, that's the perspective we see most in the genre. But there's I think, and I can never really figure this out, but there's something inherent about the form that is best suited to particular kinds of topics about, about struggle and about kind of this gritty view of life. And that's just something that I haven't experienced, you know what I mean? So I just didn't have anything to say, you know what I mean? I was making songs just because I wanted to rap. I wanted to make songs, but I truly had nothing to express in the art form. So I was never really satisfied with my own songs, because I would listen to them and just think, this isn't creating the feeling that I have when I listen to songs I like, and I don't know how to capture that feeling because it's not really something that's there in me. But with battle rap, it's like you have a dude standing in front of you on the stage. That's your subject, So that was great for me. And when I started battling, I realized, like, oh, this solves the problem. I can rap and I have something to say because it's this guy. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, and that's what I find, like, I was geared towards the battle verses, because it was my rapping when I rapped was more or less how much better I am than you, how terrible you are, and how I'm going to kill your family members, and that was a young person, but it makes so much sense, because then once you go to your first event, whether it be a freestyle event or which was what you started with, that first reaction you get is like a high. And that's when you become addicted,
absolutely.
And so speaking of that, Kid Twist has performed in Proud to Be, the World Rap Championships, Scribble Jam. He was a KOTD champion and a KOTD veteran and one of the best in the world before he retired. So what was your first battle?
My first battle, I mean, well, since you're getting into like the real history of it, I can tell you my real first battle, which was at that talent show that I won the second year when I had the EP that I did with the producer. It was a talent show at Queen's University in Kingston, there was like this, the whole thing was like this week-long program where you go and sort of take like specialized courses for a week, organized through high schools in Ontario. Anyway, so people are there from all over. And I was actually, the week-long course I was doing was in improv theater. And the university student who was like teaching that class was hosting this talent show that I won. And so he was closing out the talent show by doing this bit that he would do at his shows with this other dude in his improv troupe, where they kind of freestyled a battle. It wasn't a real battle because they're A, they're not rappers, and B, they're just kind of doing it to entertain the crowd. So they did like this fake battle to close out the show. And this dude comes up, I didn't know him at all. And he comes up to the stage. He's like, battle me, kind of like harassing the host. But the host, because I'd been in his class, knew me. And also I just won the talent show. So he's like, well, do you want to battle Kid Twist? Because I was like standing right behind him. So they just bring both of us up on the stage to battle. And you know, this is totally freestyle on the spot, not planned at all. And I just like demolished the guy. It felt so. I bet this dude is out there like telling this story of like, you know, I battled Kid Twist one time.
That's so funny. I have a hilarious story to compare for that. So I am in Ottawa. I went to school in Ottawa, and my first year in college at Algonquin, I met this guy, and his claim to fame was he battled Sharon, and Sharon used to call himself Triple C when he was in Ottawa, and. Yeah. And this guy, I don't know if you remember, I don't know like how much he used to watch battles, but this guy used to drink Kool-Aid throughout his whole entire battles. And he wore like a Kool-Aid suit. And his claim to fame was, I made Sharon famous. And I was like, AKA, he bodied your career.
Right. Yeah.
But he's still talking about it to this day, you know?
That's funny.
So Alex, like you started probably gaining momentum and doing more and more like battling and stuff like that. And then Proud to Be. So Proud to Be, if you haven't heard me explain it before, it's a freestyle battle tournament based out of Toronto that was big before Toronto got its own league and stuff like that, and before formatted and pre-written battles were made. So what was it like for you entering Proud to Be, and what was it like for you winning Proud to Be?
Man, so this is going back to, damn, what year would it have been? Was it
between 06 and 08? I feel like
it was either, I'm trying to think, it must have been 06, because the WRC I did was actually 07, although it was late in 07. So this must have been summer of 06 that I did Proud to Be. And man, the way that all came about was crazy, because this is when YouTube was just kind of starting up, right? Because YouTube started in 2005. So the whole internet culture was just so different from what it is now. And I had a summer job. I was in university at the time. I had a summer job, and it was just like, they didn't really have much work for me to do, you know? So I'm just sitting on the computer all day. So I'm going on YouTube, and I'm just literally searching rap battles. That's how I started finding real actual battles. I mean, I watched Freestyle Friday, of course. That was sort of the most accessible thing, and obviously watched the movie 8 Mile. But I'd never seen like a real battle, like the Scribble Jam stuff, all that kind of thing. So I just started watching. I mean, Thesaurus, actually, he was one of the first guys I saw, because he'd just done Scribble Jam in 2005 and had the big run there before losing to Justice. Actually, him versus Justice was one of the first battles that I watched, and to this day is one of my favorite battles of all time. I think partly because it just brought me into the art form, but it's also just so fucking cool, that whole moment that they had. So watching him, watching Iron Solomon, all these guys, and Jump Off had just started coming to the States at that point in time. So they'd done the Spin the Mic battle, where the first Thesaurus versus Ilmac happened, and Prolific was at that Spin the Mic event. So I had seen, I think, just like a clip, because I think Jump Off hadn't put out the whole battle. They just put out like a clip of Prolific battling Ilmac. And then so I'm getting into this, I'm watching all these battles, and I'm like, oh man, and I start just looking on, you may know, hiphopcanada.com, which was the big forum at the time. And I'm like, I'm just searching, like, is there any battle events coming up? And there was in like 2 weeks. Just so happened. And it didn't, you know, Proud to Be did not happen that often. So it was just like this crazy coincidence that it was going on in 2 weeks. So I was like, fuck it, I'm signing up. I think I can do this. So I emailed Chris, shout out to him, and showed up at this event. And the second, real, like, in a tournament battle I ever do is against Prolific, who I've just watched on YouTube in this whole battle history lesson I was giving myself. So yeah, man, it was pretty wild, a wild series of events and things to line up. And that's the night I met Organic too. He won the tournament that night. He beat Prolific in the final.
And then, So to speak on, I've spoken about Organic before. I'm going to have Organic on in the future. He's just very busy right now. He's got a lot on. That's why I can't thank Alex enough, because I know he's got this crazy show that's just popping off on Netflix that was released on April 29th. Uh, Yasuke.
Yasuke.
Yes, fuck.
You're close. You're close,
Fuck.
though. You're close.
All right. I was trying to make a great transition there, but it did not work. Anyway, so moving on to that, he mentioned WRCs, and I've spoken about WRCs with Nameless, who I interviewed before, who was in the same tournament bracket as you in the WRCs in Toronto. And I want what I asked him, which I'm very interested in. So the WRCs, for everybody who hasn't heard, is a 2-on-2 freestyle tournament. And there's several members. I can't remember the exact amount of teams in each division, but what they do is you have several battles and you do a tournament style, and then whoever wins goes on to the finals. And the thing is, if you don't know the insider, all of the battles are on the exact same day in the exact same location. And what I know is people were only served pizza and Red Bull. And so what was it like trying to battle and come up with a million different lines for the same people over and over to win, to get this spot, while probably sweating grease and drinking bull semen?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I honestly, bull semen might have been better. I don't know. But yeah, dude, the room we were in too, because it was this fucking rehearsal loft space. I think it was like just off Queen Street in Toronto, and just this like black box, basically no air conditioning, of course, just one of the hottest days of the summer, just sweating balls. The fucked up thing too is like they tried to run it like a TV event. You know what I mean? Shout out to Harry, because this dude is a fucking visionary, who basically started battle rap as we know it now.
He made battle rap like a league for the whole entire world. They were doing
exactly.
They had brackets in all countries and different parts of countries and brought them all together. It was something that you've never seen before. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No. That's good context for sure. Because at this point, people may not know this is almost 15 years ago now. But yeah, so he just had this. He had the vision, So certainly not to say anything bad about him. But he also had kind of aspirations, I think, of running this like a real TV shoot. So we were like, we get to the studio at like, I don't know, 11 a.m., noon, something like that. We're just kind of waiting around for people to show up, first of all. So there you've already killed an hour. Then we're just doing interviews, shooting B-roll of us walking into the room, just all this stuff that I don't think ever saw the light of day. And it's just killing so much time. We're already like sweaty messes before the battles have even started. And then we're about to run this gauntlet of doing 10 battles against the same people in one day. So like we're done before we're even beginning. Like we're exhausted before it starts. And then we have to, perform at this world-class level of battle rap for like the next 8 hours. So yeah, man, I definitely pushed through you kind of hit a wall, and then there's sort of that second wind effect. It really almost is like people describe running a marathon. It's like you hit that wall halfway through, and then you kind of push through it, and then you sort of get to this endorphin high phase where you feel like you're just firing on all cylinders. And that's definitely where I was by the end of the day. Like, because also the format was super messed up, right? Where there was like, oh, you do 3 rounds, then you go to overtime, then you go to like punchline overtime, and then sudden death punchline overtime. So there was all this crazy shit. And I remember the final battle of the day that Rich and I did was against Bishop Brigante and his partner, a rapper named Stretch Diesel. So we just assumed it was going to overtime because Harry was sending every fucking battle to overtime. And by the way, Harry was the judge. Like there's a judging panel, but Harry was like, he just did what he wanted to do pretty much. But yeah, man. So I just remember standing there, Rich and I are standing there just like so exhausted at the end of the day. But we know, like, we didn't really know who even won that day because you'd have to be keeping track of it all and adding it up in your head. But we knew at least we were somewhere near the top because we'd beaten every team at least once. So we knew we were either the number 1 team, or if we win this battle, we're the number 1 team. And so we're standing there waiting for the decision on the third round, assuming it's going to overtime because every battle does. And we're just like, fuck, man, like, you know, we've been doing this for 8 hours. Like, have you got more? And I just remember the feeling of being so high on endorphins. Like, yeah, man, I got like 10 more, like we can go right now. I could rap for 2 more hours. Let's fucking do this. So yeah, it's definitely like an interesting experiment in exploring, you know, the limits of humans to rap.
Yeah. It's almost like a Fear Factor rap battle or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, speaking of that feeling, you know what happened when we finished that day of 8 or 10 hours of rapping or whatever it was? We rapped more. We all stood in a fucking cipher and rapped more.
That's
so
battle rap.
All in the same place for sure.
That's battle rap to a T. So as you can tell, I'm a huge battle fan. And once I like moved out of my small town and would go to like battle events in the cities and like meet battle rappers, like I had some over like what an after party of mine. I'm not going to say the names, but like all they did was talk about battles, and I was like, I don't even want to talk about battles right now.
Oh, we're the worst, dude. We're the absolute worst.
But speaking of that, so he did the Toronto division. Him and Poe Rich, his partner, won the Toronto division to go into New York for the finals. So what was the experience in New York versus the experience in Toronto?
Yeah, the experience in New York was a whole other level because at that point, you know, they've run this whole competition with divisions all around the world. It's obviously gaining a huge amount of popularity. So that's when they were starting to step it up in terms of like, okay, this is a real thing. You know, we're actually like, we're paying for the rappers' flights. You know, this was unheard of in that day. You know what I mean? Now it's normal. Leagues are flying people out and stuff, but this was completely unheard of. They're flying us out, putting us up in a hotel, which is a pretty nice hotel, you know, near Times Square in Manhattan. So that, you know, they're spending some dough. We're at like a studio in Manhattan to do the battles. So everything was run like super professionally. So it really did feel like going to the playoffs. You know what I mean? It's like from this sweatbox of a loft in Toronto to actually being in Manhattan, walking through Times Square around the corner from our hotel, and then you know, taking a cab down to this venue. It was it really did feel like we were at the championships.
That's wild. And so even though you've battled the best Canadians so far in that tournament and in the past, what was it like to you? Because you speak on learning about battle rap on YouTube from a younger days. So like seeing Ilmac and Thesaurus, I'm sure you'd seen, you know, Marv and Quest before and stuff like that. So what was it like battling these people that are, you know, were looked at as god tiers, whereas Canada wasn't on the spectrum at that point? Obviously, Canada is one of the biggest battle rap leaders in the world now, but people just hadn't seen us yet. So what was it like for you? Was that kind of like was it kind of a bit of a feat with confidence, or no?
I mean, it's actually weird now because you just got me going back through the memories. It's actually weird to think back to that time. It's like we were really meeting celebrities to us. You know what I mean? Like because I think we got to the venue like a little bit before they did. And then just to see them kind of like walk up and roll into the venue, like it was really like a couple of famous dudes were arriving. You know, these were like big rappers to us. And I don't mean that in like a way to try to, you know, cash shade or something like that, or that we shouldn't have felt that way. I'm just saying that, you know, these were not our peers at the time, you know, and I still consider myself fortunate to be in the position where now they have been my peers for a long time. And, you know, those are actually two of the guys who I probably talked to on a more consistent basis than a lot of other dudes. So I'm super fortunate that way. And consider myself really lucky to have people like that who've kind of stayed in my life, who I've met through the culture. But yeah, man, it's like these were the best guys in the world and everybody knew it. And everybody there was basically excited to watch them rap. As excited as we were to participate in this tournament, we were excited to watch those guys rap, even against us, you know?
No, 100%, man. No, that's like one of my favorite things of battle rap as well, is not only because when you're a fan of everybody, you know, people and players technically, right? Like if you're looking at it as an organization or a team, I always compare it to sports because like there's divisions and different offsets and things. But one of the best parts of battle rap is watching other people. And like as a fan throughout the years, if you go and you look back at like a WRC battle and you see like the just the pure joy and like you're in Poe Rich's face or like Urin Archaic's face. You know what I mean? Just like because you can tell, but it's such a cool thing. If you're a person who hasn't listened to the podcast yet or hasn't followed the battle rap parts, is like if you were like, I'm not into wrestling, but say you do like a fun backyard wrestling with your friends, and then out of nowhere they bring you to the WWE and Vince McMahon, like it's just like, all right, here you go. You know what I mean? And
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah. And then it's like, and then you're looking at the Hulk in the face. You know?
Yeah. Like Jesus Christ. All right.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's Kid Twist, one of the best freestyle legends of all time, one of the only Canadians to be successful somewhat at Scribble Jam. What did you think when all these things started hopping up, when it started with the Elements League in Nova Scotia to Grindtime and then a King of the Dot, which you were in the were you in the inaugural event or was it a few events in?
No, I was in the first one. Me and Poe Rich was the first headliner. Yeah.
And what was it like to you, man? Like preparing, because I'm sure you go into freestyles and you have like a certain thing. You're looking at your opponent while other people are rapping and you're trying to, you know, brainstorm things. But what was it like having the pre-written format? It's such a change than just doing the freestyle.
It was funny because at that time it was sort of still unspoken. You know what I mean? Because with the WRCs, yeah, like first of all, we were just doing so many battles in a day. Like you can't really write for that many battles, you know. But then when the playoffs were happening, it's like people were definitely doing a lot more writing because we had many months and we knew what teams were going to be in it. I mean, so we didn't know exactly because you kind of had to watch everything play out week to week the way Harry was releasing the videos. But yeah, you had an idea. You basically knew who would be in the playoffs. So, you know, it's like, why wouldn't you be taking advantage of that opportunity to prepare some stuff ahead of time, right? It's just smart. So that's kind of where the writing aspect started to come into play. And then when King of the Dot and Grindtime start up, I mean, the funny thing is actually the Elements League literally had like a freestyle division and a written division. So they were interestingly the first ones to make it. Well, first of all, they were the first league of that type. And second of all, they made it really explicit, like, no, we're writing. King of the Dot, when it started, was sort of like, you know, nobody's really saying it, but was like, so we're all kind of writing at this point, right? Right, guys? That's what we're doing here. Yeah. Okay. So you know, over those first couple events, there were probably some people who were like actually freestyling at those first couple events, and they quickly figured it out, like, oh right, okay, everyone else is writing. All right, that's what we're doing now here. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that transition happened, kind of like behind the curtains, except for the Elements League, which just stated it outright.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Nova Scotia, so like my brothers would attend Elements League events. I was like 11 years old at the time. But yeah, I remember getting like Pat Stay's first t-shirt before, like I had to e-transfer him on email before you could like buy merch on websites.
Nice. Does it say suck a free mouse?
Oh, dude, I'm not wearing it today. You should see the amount of merch I have from Pat Stay. It's sad but funny at the same time. I did a Lush One interview and I had a sucker free. He's like, "Is that?" Like, yeah. But to add on to that, so battle rap became this big figure, and you have leagues pop up. You have Grindtime in the U.S. You have Smack and URL in the US. You have King of the Dot in Canada. You have Don't Flop in the United Kingdom. You have a South African league pop up. You have Flip Top in the Philippines. You have Australian leagues. You have a Russian league, which is one of the most viewed in all of battle rap, which is hilarious. Like, what was it like to you just seeing the progression?
I mean, man, it's almost hard to kind of put myself in that mind frame now. But I think it was just kind of like surreal, but exciting. And there was really a feeling of sort of being caught up in a movement. You know what I mean? Like we knew that we were seeing something important happen and that we were part of something important. And looking back on it, I think we were right. You know, it's kind of professionalized to a degree and sort of like settled into the structure that we have now. It's a little more stable, but it's still just as much a global phenomenon, you know? So yeah, it just kind of had this exciting energy to it. We didn't know exactly where it was going to go or end up, but we knew that we were part of something.
Yeah, it's such a, to me at that point, as you say, celebrities, like when I was watching YouTube, I was only watching rap battles on YouTube. And like now I'm a big fan of social media and I understand numbers and things like that. And it's funny to look at like a channel like King of the Dot, who doesn't even have 1 million subscribers, but the subscribers are ride or die. And like it's bigger than the numbers are bigger than what you think. You'll see like a random YouTuber who does Minecraft with like 20 million. But it's different. It's so different, you know?
Yeah, I think it's also the mentality of like subscribing. You know, like I think maybe I'm subscribed to King of the Dot. I don't think I subscribe to anything on YouTube. I think it's more like our generation, like kids. I think because they grew up watching YouTubers who say like and subscribe at the end of every video, it's just like ingrained in their brains. Hit subscribe. So that's kind of Minecraft. People get that.
Oh, I watched a video a few years ago of like a Jake Paul video, and they broke down the amount of ads he had in like a 7-minute video, like buy my merch, buy my merch, buy my merch. But okay, so Alex, aka Kid Twist, went away from battling for a few years, came back, but then, you know, I think this is when he kind of started to realize, you know, like this was a phase of life. This is a big integral part. I look at it as a bucket list with things like this. Some things you don't have to do forever. They're just a passion and you've done them and you appreciate it for what it is. So Kid Twist took a hiatus from battle rap, and this company, I can't remember the exact company, but they were working with you on releasing music and also doing a documentary with Spenny from Kenny versus Spenny. Is this correct?
This is correct. I honestly have no idea how you know this stuff.
But
completely correct though. Completely.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, hey, I like that. This is a little Nardwar point. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
During this time, from my sources, since this is deemed correct, Alex actually emailed the company and said, you know what, I'm more focused on writing myself for movies, and that's what I've fallen in love with. And I think that's what's best for me. And so at that point, is that when you started to write Bodied?
Not actually, no, because your history is very on point. But at that point in time, I was trying to pursue writing in general. I actually didn't have screenwriting specifically in mind. So here's a fun part of the story that I don't think I've ever said anywhere. So I think even you may not know about this, but I actually I was kind of thinking like, okay, so I had this sort of like novel that I'd written, but that I, kind of didn't really want to submit anywhere because I didn't think that it represented who I wanted to be as a writer. So I started working on short stories and stuff like that, and just didn't really know like where to go with it because the literary world is so small, first of all. It's just like, it's hard to know how to break in. Like you can submit short stories to literary journals, but honestly, nobody really reads them. So it's kind of like, how do you sort of break into the publishing world? It seemed a mystery to me, and still it kind of is to a degree. But I was like, all right, well, I know one of the things that a lot of writers do is they get MFAs, Masters of Fine Arts degrees, because you can do that in creative writing, and that sort of like links you into the literary world. So I had this bachelor's degree in creative writing. So I was like, okay, why don't I apply to try and go back to school for an MFA? Because that'll sort of start moving me back into that literary space. So I applied for an MFA in to go back in 2015. I got rejected. So I got rejected for my MFA. 2 weeks later, I get a DM from Joseph Kahn asking if I write screenplays. And now I'm a screenwriter.
That's insane. So I touched on him before, but Joseph Kahn, if you look up like the biggest music videos of all time, he's been the director of all of them. And then he's had movies as well. He had another great movie actually called Detention that Organic, who was mentioned before, was in on. But
yeah, and Dumbfounded as well.
And Dumbfounded. And oh man, Alex, that's insane for you to say that to me, that I'm thinking of this, I got rejected. So then that, is serendipity. So what was your answer to him? And then what was like the start from that?
I was like, I remember everything about this DM. You know what I mean? Like I was working a job in downtown Toronto at the time, and my wife just happened to be working like across the street. So we
were you a web developer or a game deviser?
Game designer. Yeah, I was a game designer at the time. So I'd like drop her off at work and then sort of just like walk across the street, down the street to my office building every day. So I just dropped her off in the morning, and I was standing at the corner waiting for the light to change, checked my phone, and it's just like DM from Joseph Kahn. I was just like, holy shit. Like, you know, we'd exchanged, like, we had like a kind of like back and forth, like publicly on Twitter, just like small couple messages years and years before this, when Detention came out. So like, I know, you know, I of course knew who he was. I knew that he knew who I was, but it was totally out of the blue for him to contact me. So I remember like kind of like read the message and then was just like, shit, and just like my mind's a blur. Just like get to my office, sit down on my computer, like, all right, I'm not gonna respond to this. But I think I just because he sent me his email address, and I just like, you know, sent him a quick email like, yeah, man, like obviously would absolutely love to work on anything you have going on. And we just started talking. So yeah, it was, as you say, an incredibly serendipitous moment.
Yeah, that's so crazy to me, man. And so you guys are starting to talk, and you're probably, you know, thinking about ideas and networking things. And so I'm interject, please, if I'm wrong. But so my opinion of the movie Bodied is a very good movie. People always think about comparing it to 8 Mile because it's a white kid who raps. But what Alex has said in interviews is like his depiction of like what was good and bad with battle rap at the time. And like, if you're looking back, say like 11 years in 2009, like everybody ended a line, a battle rhyme with like a gay slur or something like that, or like a homophobic slur. And like that was like a big reaction for just being a homophobe back in the day, which we are not anymore. And we finally learned that things like that are terrible. So with Bodied, it speaks on culture. It speaks on Alex speaks on he's white. He's admitted it in the interview already. He talks about like being a white person. The movie is about a white kid who's into battle rap, and his family, who are white and don't come from the world at all, don't get it. But then also people who are involved in the world don't get that he's involved in it. And there's kind of like a disconnect. But then he finds this crew of, I like to say, rugrats in the battle rap world of like, just, you know, just it's like looking at like a Canadian Tire picture. It's like the dad's Asian, the mom's white, and the kid's African. And like, so his group of friends teaches him about
the Canadian Tire flyers are like that.
Yeah. He teaches he gets taught by his friends and his peers, and then he goes through all this stuff. But I think my biggest thing, as I'm rambling and I'm trying to get to it, is the biggest message in the movie is like what's good and what's bad from battle rap, and how it can help you as a person socially, but then also look at it socially from a different construct or an outside perspective. And so when did you guys, I'm sorry this is so elongated, but when did you guys like come to this maybe synopsis for it? Because I know when you write stuff, you have to have like an elevator pitch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the only thing, and look, by the way, my even though I wrote the movie, my opinion on it is certainly not authoritative. I can only talk about, you know, how I see it and what my intention was, which is not necessarily 100% in line with the final result. But I mean, I would say that yeah, it's about the good and bad of battle rap, but specifically, it's about the good and bad of someone like myself participating in battle rap. You know what I mean? Because it would be it would be a bit presumptuous. Well, not a bit. It would be very presumptuous of me as a white screenwriter to be kind of delving deep on, you know, battle rap culture, which is ultimately a Black culture. So I think and hope what we did in the movie was sort of show enough of the culture to treat it with respect, but to have the conflict be about this guy who's from a totally different world, who's this white upper class grad student, jumping into a world and thinking he understands what's going on, but he doesn't really. And that's where all the conflict comes from. And that sort of idea, actually, that really came from Joseph, honestly, because when we first started, so first of all, we started talking about just doing like a project in general. And then he decided, he's like, you know what, I've always really wanted to do a battle rap movie. That would be perfect for us to work on, obviously. So why don't we do something there? And I was pitching him ideas, and funnily enough, and this actually speaks to a lot of the critiques that Bodied received, which I obviously think is totally fair, because one of the first things I was saying to Joseph is like, dude, we can't make another battle rap movie about a white guy. Like, we have to have a Black protagonist. You know what I mean? But Joseph was like, he's like, you know what? There's something really interesting in your story where, you know, a character like you is coming from such a different place than Eminem's character in 8 Mile. And ultimately, I think that was the right decision, because I don't think I could really write about a Black protagonist in battle rap in the way that it would need to be done. You know what I mean? Because I just don't have that experience. So I think if you're going to have a battle rap movie written by Kid Twist, Bodied is kind of the best approach you could have, where it's sort of taking the typical white savior narrative and interrogating it and flipping it on its head to a degree, which some people still didn't care for, and that's totally fair. But I think it was actually the right call, and Joseph kind of led the project in that direction, which may be funny for people to hear, because you think just like, oh yeah, this character is obviously close to Twist. He wanted to write about himself, and that was actually not the case at all. I really didn't want to write about myself, but I think it's a better decision to do that than to write about someone else and really mess it up.
It's true, but I think that's upon him messaging you. I think he saw something within you. You know what I mean? Like he liked your story, and that's a beautiful thing, because so I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Nova Scotia, but then my high school years were spent in Muskoka, Ontario. It's like very conservative, very like bunch of white people, all this kind of stuff. And like I was a big battle rap fan, big hip hop fan, big basketball fan. Like my mom didn't understand, and she really didn't understand the battle rap part. She's like, why do you want to be so aggressive? Like you're good at rhyming, but you don't need to be mean about it. And like when I showed her Bodied, she understood it, because it's coming from that perspective. Like earlier you spoke on how not understanding certain things but relating. So I reference Dear Mama by Tupac, because he speaks about growing up as a kid with a Black single mother in the ghetto, struggling. And even though I'm not the same, I grew up as my mom being a single mom and like understanding certain things. And so the message from that song got to me. So maybe that's why Joseph picked you up. Maybe he saw it in you, whereas I see it in the movie in you, but then him bringing it out of you is a beautiful thing as well.
No, exactly. And I mean, a lot of times we kind of can't see what's most worthwhile within ourselves, right? It takes that outside perspective. And the other thing I think that you're touching on here, which is just a truth about writing, which is something that, one of my creative writing professors always instilled in us, which is that the universal is found in the specific. So you want to create something universal like Dear Mama that everyone can relate to, and like that I relate to, even though I wasn't raised by a single mom. We all have those types of feelings about our mothers, right? How could you not? But that is so specifically about Tupac's own personal experience. But because he's being so honest about it, it becomes universal, because we can all relate on an emotional level. And I think that's what all art is about, really, is rendering the specific in such a fully formed way that it becomes universally relatable.
No, that's nail in the coffin or nail in the head there, because I find anything in any kind of writing, whether it be you interpreting a movie, interpreting a song, interpreting a poem, I think anybody can take something personally from that like even though it's not connected to them. And it's the same thing as when you ask somebody, say like their favorite food of all time, or their favorite movie of all time, or their favorite album of all time, like a desert island scenario. It's all situational, I find, like, well, and what am I feeling? What are my emotions? Where's my head at? Like whenever I get asked that question for like a music standpoint, it's like, well, I got to think of the emotions I'm going to be going through when I'm in that place, And so,
yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, Bodied was a success in my eyes. I don't know what you think of it. I love it. Everybody that I've showed it to thought it was amazing. It's in a great different perspective of battle rap, and also times of change too. Like it's very focused on today's era and what's going on and things like that. And so recently, on April 29th, 2021, you released your TV show that I'm not going to try for my fourth attempt to butcher. So why don't you say the name?
Yasuke.
Yasuke. And Yasuke, from what I've deemed, is it's an anime, and it's about this guy who was a servant, and he becomes one of the top warriors or samurais, and then he is put on to help this girl who has these things that nobody has ever seen. And so, to me, as a writer, it's such a transition to write a personal, not autobiographical, but in a sense of your life and then your perceptions of the thing embodied, to a series about somebody in a different place, and that's also animated. And so, and it's doing numbers right now. It's doing amazing. So what was the transition for you? And like, it must have been somewhat of a passion project, it seems like, or another amazing opportunity.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was really both those things. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity that became that. Luckily, was a passion project for me. Because I'm certainly not. I would never present myself as the most hardcore anime fan in the world, but it's certainly a genre I've always been drawn to. A lot of my favorite films and TV shows are anime. So I was excited to work within the genre. And then just the opportunity to tell this particular story about this character Yasuke, who was a real guy who existed. Obviously, we have a very fictionalized fantasy take on it. It's a world with magic powers and giant mech robots and that kind of thing. But this dude really existed. He was an African who did arrive in Japan. It's actually not a lot is known about his history, but it's likely he arrived in Japan as a servant and then impressed one of the main feudal lords, Oda Nobunaga, so much that he was taken into Nobunaga's service and quickly became a samurai. So our show covers a period of history about which nothing is known, which is after Nobunaga died. When he was betrayed by one of his former lords. And then Yasuke disappears from the historical record. So we pick up on what his adventures in Japan may have been 20 years after Nobunaga died.
Wow. And it's such a cool story too, because I think upon I guess one correlation I could really have in your writing is in Bodied, you speak about race a lot and how you can't understand another race being from somewhere else. Just like you can always appreciate and be a hero or try to help people, but you can never understand because you're not them. But so what I love about like the trailer about it, I'm not an anime guy at all, but from my perspective and my presumption is it's a anime that doesn't seem to be touched on a lot. There's a guy from Africa who's in Japan and he becomes the main samurai. Before that, people look at him as a servant, and then they look at him as the best. And then he helps out this other girl who almost seems to be not a castaway, but like a rejected person because they don't understand who she is. Like, is that kind of what you were going for at all, or?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's all about
because
that,
you said it's a real story as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's kind of putting yourself in that mind frame of this guy who was truly an outsider. And if you look at the historical accounts that do exist from the time, a lot of them speak about how he was kind of looked at as this new type of person that the Japanese hadn't seen before, and he caused quite a stir wherever he would go. And there's also a correlation to how the show was created, because, and this is something that's been spoken about and written about a lot surrounding the show, but anime is huge in Black culture in the States, and so this is major as the first time where you have Black creators from the States. LaShawn Thomas, who's the director, who's absolutely incredible, and the show is really like his vision to a large degree. And then also the vision of Flying Lotus, who scores the whole thing and was also involved in the story from the very beginning. So this started as LaShawn and Flylo's story, and then they brought on board the writers, which was myself and Nick Jones, who was the head writer, also a Black American. And so you have this team of myself, a random white Canadian, and Black anime fans who have the opportunity to work with one of the top studios in Japan and create a true anime show. So it is really unique in the way it was created, and certainly shares this this interesting mirror to the character story that we're telling.
Man, that's such a good. You know what? I'm gonna watch it and try it because of that. Because of how you said it. I don't watch any anime. I don't understand it as a friend. Like, a lot of my friends are big fans of it, as you said, but I just never got into it. But like, I liked the trailer and I kind of got what you were getting with. So I'm gonna watch it, man. And like I suggest other people's to watch it, and I suggest other people, other persons, other human beings, other individuals to watch it, along with please watch Bodied. It's an amazing feature film. And if you're a mom, even though I probably don't have a big mom listenership, whose son is going through a rap phase, watch that shit. It's gonna help you out. This is gonna be random. I'm not putting you on the spot. Your top 3 movies in your head right now.
Like top 3 movies all time?
Just in your head right now. You don't have to do a list or anything. You can just do like what is in your head right now. Like maybe.
So if it's my go-to answers would be Princess Mononoke. So speaking of anime, that one is probably my favorite movie of all time. Just absolutely incredible. Every frame of that film is gorgeous and just such a uniquely told story. What fascinates me most about that film is you have a story being told with all these completely conflicting perspectives and yet no clear heroes or villains. That's not the dynamic at all. And that's so rare. I mean, in any type of storytelling almost, but certainly in, like an action oriented adventure story. So that, yeah, I would say to me, that's number one always. Other ones that I probably put top 3, Snowpiercer, which is an incredible movie, actually a pretty good TV show too. I was skeptical about the TV show because it's one of my favorite movies, but they take it in a very different direction, but I think it's one of the best shows on right now. So yeah, great movie and surprisingly great TV show. Man, what would I put? I mean, there's a bunch I could choose from. I might be tempted to say just to put something really different in there, Before Sunset by Richard Linklater, which is just, what I love about that movie. First of all, it's just incredible. You have a movie that is 2 people talking, and it's the most engaging, dramatically exciting thing I've ever seen. But I also just love the fact that when you start getting into screenwriting, what you'll hear from producers and executives a lot is, well, you can't just have 2 people talking. This scene has to be more than just 2 people talking. I'm like, I don't know, that motherfucker has been making movies that are just 2 people talking for 25 years and they are all excellent. So
first off, your answers are amazing. I love the plethora and how they're not like all like mob movies or all this. My head script writing teacher, she would the Saves the Cat book is like a script writer's Bible. She would say, like, you need to listen to, it's like any professor in college, like you have to read this book and nothing else. And I remember her talking about the person who made The Matrix, and she's like, he went against all script writing and screenwriting odds. And I'm just like, well, you're a teacher in Ottawa at a community college, and there's some fucking really famous writers in Hollywood.
Yeah. Who am I going to listen to? Which Housekeys are you?
Yeah. Exactly. And I'll give you, because I want to hear your thought on this opinion. This is a very generic, but mine is always my favorite movie is Shawshank. But the thing that I love about Shawshank is that there's not a love story between a man and a woman throughout the whole movie, whereas almost every single movie there's an arc where it's like they're in love and then they get out of love and then they get back together, no matter what the actual plot of the movie is. And I find like it's the relationship within Morgan and Tim Robbins with that, and like that's what I love about that movie. It's the uniqueness,
Yeah, no, it's obviously one of the greatest movies ever made. You know what I mean? It has the reputation it has for a reason.
Yeah,
for sure.
But no, like, man, thank you so much for being on, dude. This has been one of the easiest, most fluent, not having to worry about the transitions interviews I've ever done.
And like, perfect, man. That's great. And respect on your Nardwuar moments. You got me, man. You got me. Honestly, I probably said a lot of shit I wouldn't normally say in an interview, just because you did the interviewer thing. You got me off guard there a little bit, so good on you.
Well, I just and that's a great. I love that. Makes me feel great. And my whole venture in this is I'm interested in the people, so I want them to know I'm interested in them. I don't just want to be, oh, you did this, let me get clout off you doing this. You know what I mean? Fuck that, man. I appreciate you for being you, and you answer me, bro, is just like Joseph Kahn DMing you. You know what I mean? So I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And thank you so much for the interview.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and maybe we'll have him on in the future to talk about upcoming projects. But please check out the series on Netflix. Check out Bodied. check out Kid Twist battles. They're hilarious. They're great. They're they're iconic. So like, please listen to him, Alex Larsen, aka Kid Twist. If you have a movie idea, hit him up. Only if it's legitimate. I'm gonna keep Alex on. I'm gonna end the episode now. Thank y'all for listening. Appreciate y'all. Love it, and thank you so much.